Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at WARCROW Winds from the North, the 2-player introductory battle pack from Corvus Belli for their new fantasy adventure skirmish game, set in their own universe and featuring 2 starter factions, a full gaming mat, cardstock terrain, dice, templates, and tokens, so that you can play through a adventure skirmish between these 2 factions of orcs and humans and elves. And this basically introduces this game into the world. So what do we got inside? Well, like I said, it's a pretty complete box set, passes the Christmas morning test in that we have an introductory booklet with the core mechanics of the game, cards, which is something new if you've ever played Infinity. All of the stats for the units in this box set come with a statistic card for you to play through and know what everything does. A Baklia Farm scenery pack. This is your complete scenery pack. If you've played Infinity, which is the science fiction war game made by Corvus Belli before, you're probably familiar with these packs by now. They're very comprehensive and also include all of your measuring devices and tokens. And then you get a selection of miniatures, 14, there's 7 for each side, 2 companies for each of the 2 factions, and your bespoke dice. If you've played Aristea, the sports combat game that they've produced for their Infinity universe, you'll be familiar with these dice. If you've played other miniature games, such as, for instance, Marvel Crisis Protocol, they use a similar strike, block, and trigger system, and different dice have different values. Some are all blocks with triggers, some are more strikes with triggers, and depending on how offensive and defensive you are, you have mixes of these on your stat card for your different attack values. And then we got the miniatures themselves. These are all in a hard resin. I believe it's either Unicool or Cyocast. I'm not actually super sure what these ones in particular are, but both have been used in the past by Corvus Belli. And I'll do a separate video on the miniature quality as well as the building of this box, which you'll see in a truncated version coming up next week, but which will be going up the same day as you're watching this video for my patrons live, and include a Q&A chat. They can pick my brain about the box set and yeah, get the nitty gritty behind the actual components and stuff. So we have our poster mat for the game. It is a 3x3, which is the standard gaming size for this, as you can see. So there you go, there's your little, sorry, 24x24, not 3x3 for this one. And isn't, like, it's comparable to the poster mats they've had for the Infinity game. I think it looks fine, and it doesn't have any real sort of like scaling terrain on it, which makes it easy to move stuff around on, place where you want. And we've got our tab fit terrain box, terrain set here for the farm itself. I'll just take the plastic off this so you can also see the tokens. Instructions are inside the sleeve there, as you can see, and it's in a decent thickness cardstock. It looks like probably 2 mil cardstock, and also includes this little plastic gizmo for making your scoring spinner for the turn right here. It's a little turn counter for playing the game, as well as some 2-dimensional terrain, which you can zhuzh up, templates for your trees and stuff like that. I'll be doing, obviously, that during the Let's Play, which you'll see coming up for this very soon. And then here is our token sets. Activated tokens, various status tokens, 2 measuring sticks, as well as a short measuring gauge for getting in there into combat, and all of your status cards and stuff as well. As a little monster token, your turn token, which is this guy right here for turns 1 to 10. And that is the cardboard insert. So let's take a look at the introductory book, because this is, of course, the goal behind this box set is to get you playing as fast as possible. They want you to assemble your miniatures and get it on the table. And that's why they've provided as much as possible for us to not have to go outside this box. And that's the first, I think, real point of pride that CB should take. They've done a good job of this with most of their Infinity releases. But this box in particular is also trying to do its best to provide basically like a speed experience or a encapsulated experience of the gameplay in one go. You're also going to get, like I said, a grand total of 35, 60, 125 points worth of I've already forgotten the name of this faction. It is the Hegemony of Emberzig. It's the Emberzig, I can't remember. I'm just gonna call them the Hegemony because that's just way too much. And then the easy one, the Northern Tribes, which is the Orcs and Goblins, or Orcs and Trolls, Ice Elves, Dark Elves, whatever you want to call them. They look like Thor Ragnarok or Thor the Dark World Elves. And of course, they all have their own background and stuff too, which you'll see when I go through the GMG review of the full rulebook for this, but we're going to focus on this, as this, I think, is a good starting point for anyone interested in the game. Full stack cards for everything that comes in the box for the 2 factions. And the core book itself is written, I think, probably in my favorite way that modern war games are currently being written, which is a temporal format, which means that the order in which you do things is the way that the book is laid out. So we start with the fog and the story of the conflict between the Hegemony and the Northern Tribes. Why are they fighting? A little bit of background, and then we dive right into what's in this box and how to play with it. So the what's in the box, learning to play, core stat line, so your name for your units, the cost, which is their point value, their attributes, and if you've played Infinity, this is going to be pretty familiar. You get your move, so it's a move dash move, A and B powers. So the number in parentheses is their charge move. All values are in strides, which is the unit of measurement in WARCROW. It's just inches. They're calling it strides so that they don't have to use centimeters. But yes, a stride is basically the length of a base, which these are all on 25 mil bases, which gives you roughly 25 millimeters, 2.5 centimeters is roughly an inch. And yes, every warrior and creature participating in the game has a miniature. These represent the occupied space of the miniature on the base, although the size may vary. Under no circumstances can base overlap during the course of the game. Your wounds value is how many wounds you can take before you die. Your willpower is actually a dice color. This roll of dice, identified by colored icons, represents their determination. It's also the value that spellcasters use to cast spells. So for instance, this Black Legion Buckleman has a willpower of a orange die, which is going to give you triggers and successes. I'm gonna pull the dice out because it's just makes more sense. A orange, basically the warm colored dice are strikes. The cooler colored dice are blocks. So an easy visual is the closer you are from yellow to red, the more dangerous you are. So the yellows are slightly less dangerous than the oranges. The reds are the most dangerous. Vice versa, the blacks are the greatest at blocking. Then I believe it's green, then blue. So it's green, blue, black for these ones, and they're primarily all blocks. Both have triggers on them for creating your trigger conditions. Then we've got our morale. The morale value indicates the maximum amount of stress the unit can withstand. Whenever the accumulated stress exceeds this value, they must pass a willpower test to avoid becoming demoralized. So their morale is 1. Now, if you, again, are familiar with Infinity, in Infinity you can activate a model more than once during the course of a turn. You can also do that in this game, but every time you do, they gain a stress. So for instance, this Black Legion Buckleman unit, you get 3 activations over the course of a round, usually. If you activate this unit more than once, the first time's fine. The second time, they'll take a stress, which would still be under their morale. If you did it again for a third time, their morale would then be exceeded, which means they have to make a willpower test, or they become demoralized, and they can start doing things like fleeing. And then availability, this is the number of times you can take this unit and add it to your company, as long as you don't exceed the total cost and earning points agreed upon the game. So, for instance, these guys have an I keep wanting to say AVA, which is an Infinity term, AVB of 3. And then finally, your characteristics. The keywords, characteristic or descriptive labels. So for instance, these guys, the Black Legion Buckleman, they are availability 3. They're 20 points each. It's 60 points for 3 of them. Characters can be of 2 different types, officers or supports. That's number 5, which is over somewhere. Number 5 is 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D. No, I'm losing it. Number 6, number of command tokens the unit can control. Oh, it's these guys over here. Number 5 is going to be on this side. There it is. 5 is going to be command, which means it has a little like helmet under its face. And then 6, number of command tokens to generate. Command tokens are used to give you extra abilities. Again, it's like a concept you're probably familiar with if you played Infinity. So your command abilities are generated, and if you use Dragoslav Bieloruk or Drago the Anvil, he gets you 3 command tokens for your troop leader. Troop leaders units have a designated troop leader at all times. The game function of the troop leaders to be the reference point for determining movement, as well as indicating where troops are in formation with each other. Models that make a solo unit are considered to be their own troop leader. So fall leader, all troops in the unit must at all times replicate what their leader does. So if you take Black Legion Buckleman, their troop leader would be their coherency center, and they would basically just follow the same orders. It's almost like a link team in Infinity. They'd follow the same orders as that person. Your combat panel, which is the top there, it's your attack and your defense. So for instance, the attack of the the A members and the B members. So the leader in a Buckleman unit has a red dice and 3 orange dice to attack, and then 2 green dice and a black dice to defend. On a wild, you get to add a single shield to your roll. On a a extra wild, you get to add a shield to your roll on over here as well. And then vice versa, the bannermen themselves have 2 oranges and 2 yellows to attack and 2 blues to defend. Units made up of multiple models have 2 entries in their comp panel depending on the number of troops remaining. Their attack and defense rolls, as well as their modifiers, may be different. The first entry represents the performance of the unit while the majority of its troops are still standing. The second was when they're reduced by half. So you degrade basically depending on how big your unit has left. And so it wasn't leader and follower, it's your attack degradation. And then B, attack, we distinguish between ranged attacks and projectile attacks and melee attacks. So basically if you have a bow next to it, it's a ranged attack. If you have a melee next to it, it's a melee attack. So for Dragoslav, he's got a ranged attack over here, which is going to be a white or a yellow with a free hit. And then his melee attack is going to be 2 reds, 2 yellows, and a green. And if he gets a double trigger, your target receives the vulnerable state because you kind of stagger them. And then you've also got your command abilities. So for instance, you can spend a command token on the Anvil, no line of sight. At the end of the activation, an allied unit within adds 2 to its conquest value to speed control an objective. Your conquest value is going to be your sort of like almost like objective control stat in a Games Workshop game. And then he has an all-the-time ability, Inspiring Leadership, no line of sight. All allied models can use their willpower instead of their own. His willpower is 2 oranges and a yellow, so significantly better. His morale is 3, which means he can activate 4 times without any penalties. And his availability is 1. And then 9 at the bottom here, game profile of characters and units. These are the values and abilities that the character brings to the unit he joins. So when he gets stuck to a unit and becomes their unit leader, you gain their willpower and his morale, so your morale goes up by 1. So they would be willpower 3 orange and a yellow, and morale would be +1 to be morale 2. You gain the Anvil. He gives an automatic strike to their melee attacks, and he gives an automatic shield to their defense attacks, plus he gives them a green dice. So he gives a lightning bolt, a strike, and a strike, and then a lightning bolt, a green dice, and a shield to the melee attacks, or the defense. Your unit requires Elite and Bloodlust if he's in the unit, and then nobody falls under my command. You may repeat any dice of your choice from your defense rolls. And repeat means reroll. Game profile in a character unit basically means that they're attached though as part of that unit from now on until the unit's dead. Then you get your officers and supports. Join a unit. Characters can use the ability to join a unit indicated in their profile. So only guys who have the officer and the support keyword can join a unit. And then the X value is how many can. Allied, enemy, neutral. All units in your company controlled by your allies to each other. All units controlled by your opponent considered to be enemy. Some scenarios might have neutrals, kind of like the HVTs in Infinity. Units in formation. All troops in a unit, whether possible, must be in formation. They must be within 2 strides of the troop leader. So a simple thing is showing a template here, but it's if you played War Machine, it's all War Machine coherency. Measurement tools, these are the cardstock ones. You've got a 3, 5, 4, and 2 measuring gauge, and then a 12-inch gauge. Or sorry, a 20-inch? No, it's not 20. 20 strides. 1 stride is equivalent to the radius of an infantry base, 15 millimeters. Sorry, they're 30 mils. The radius, not the, oh my God, the radius. So they're 30 mil bases, not 25 mil bases. And it's 15 millimeters is the radius, not the diameter. Okay, let's just make that a little more complicated. All right, then line of sight. This line of sight represents everything I can see on the battlefield. You can draw line of sight. If your troop leader can draw a straight line between its base and the base of at least half the other unit's troops, round it up. If this line is not valid if it passes through any game element that blocks line of sight. When calculating line of sight, keep in mind that a unit always has line of sight to itself. The troops that make up a unit do not block line of sight to their companions. Other units, friendly, enemy, and neutral, do block line of sight, and miniatures have a 360 line of vision. The lines that join the center of the base of the troops in the same unit block line of sight towards other elements. And terrain features with block line of sight prevent tracing of line of sight. And then we have our dice pools. The WARCROW dice system can be obtained with these sides. They're basically D8s. And then some dice have values, which is a success, which is a strike, a hollow success, a block, a hollow block, a special, and a hollow special is the terminology we use for this one. I think it was triggers in Aristea. And I do apologize. Terms are slipping out of me from the other Corvus Belli games that I've played. I will try and stick to these terms as I memorize them, but you'll have to forgive me that I will slide into game terms from other familiar systems. Yeah, switches. So specials trigger switches, which was, again, a thing from Aristea. Face-to-face roll and dice pool. So a simple roll is gather your dice pool if the roll allows you to do it. Roll the dice. Add automatic symbols if they require adding. Switches, at the step, you can spend any number of switches obtained in your dice to activate your switches. And then resolution, Your symbols that have not been spent in your switches are the ones that you finally get in your roll. If there's at least one success among them, then it was successful or the roll was successful. And then a face-to-face roll is, in a face-to-face roll, you use your opposite skills. You get your respective dice, you roll them at the same time, add your automatic symbols. So for instance, on, what's his name? On, let's say this boss man here, he gets an automatic success on his melee attacks on Albork the Orc. And then on a defense roll, he gets a pair of blue dice and a black dice. So you'd roll, if he was attacking himself, you'd roll a red and 2 oranges with an automatic success against a blue and 2 black. So in this case, the blue and 2 black get 3 triggers and 3 specials. He can not do anything in the defense roll with specials, so that doesn't help him at all. And if he was attacking himself, he would get a red, 2 orange, and a success, and he would get 1, 2, a hollow success, and 3 triggers. So he can spend 2 triggers to cancel a block and add a success to his roll. So he would get 4 successes, and then he could spend another one of these successes to then suffer a stress. So he could like pull these 2 triggers off to give a success and add a success to the pool, and then he could do that one to then add a stress to the bad guy. He got no blocks, so his free success he got from spending these would then cause him to succeed in the roll. And then we play the tutorial scenario. So this one I'll be getting ready tomorrow. We have Dregoslav, the Anvil, and then Frostfire Herald, a War Surgeon, and the Buckleman, versus Albork, the Evoker, the Wise Mane, and the Orc Hunters. So it's basically all the models in the box. You set it up as shown below. And then what's great is this next part is going to take you through playing the game almost like a battle report. So the way the book is laid out, it has you lay out the miniatures and then play through the game, walking you through it. Turn counter has 10 numbered positions, and then you're going to play the game over a series of game rounds divided by turns. Each round in the scenario lasts 3 turns, so you get 3 activations. Scoring, at the end of each round, you get 1 VP if you control the central objective. At the end of the scenario, you get 1 VP if your company's eliminated the wide Morn Mab, which is the big bad guy model that's on here. So basically, there's a monster in the village, and you're both trying to kill it. Round turns, so it's the start of the round, the turns phase, and the end phase. At the start of the round, you place the end of round token at position 3 on the turn counter, since the tutorial is a 3-turn round. At the first round, place the dial on the turn marker position 1. And then turns phase, each round consists of a number of game turns in which you and your opponent will alternate activating your units. In the first turn of the round, whoever has initiative must decide who activates a unit first and who activates second. The activation order will remain the same until the end of the round. Number of turns is indicated in the position of the end of round token on the turn counter. When you finish resolving the game turn in which the token is found, the round ends. And the Northern Tribes have initiative and decide that during the first turn, they will activate one of their units. So you activate a unit. When declare one of your units is activated, place an activation token next to its profile, but it's already assigned when it gets a stress instead. You can declare up to 2 actions. So 2 simple actions like move, attack, perform a skill, or cast a spell, or a long action like assault and charge. So move is move your movement stat. Units composed of several troops. To move the unit, place the short template touching the edge of the base. Make sure you move using the side corresponding to the troop movement. You can move it from 0 strides to the end of your distance. So Albork has a move of 3-2. To move 3 sides, Albork can travel the entire distance or just a section in the second case. So he can go from one side to the other. So you move from front to back, according to this diagram. The unit must be able to travel in a straight line without obstacles. That is, its base must be able to move without colliding with the base of an enemy model, a neutral unit, or the base of a terrain element that prevents its movement. Units composed of several troops. To move a unit consisting of 2 or more troops, follow these steps. Move the troop leader. Place the other troops in formation, a maximum of 2 strides from the troop leader and within line of sight. Your unit cannot end its movement in contact with other units. The only way to do this is through the assault and charge actions. So there you go. So the orcs move forward, the hegemony moves forward, and then turn 2. The tribe wishes to fight for the objective, so they spend their orc hunters, will activate again and will charge using their whole activation. And then they move the charge move, which means the movement in brackets. So the charge move allows you to move your unit in a straight line when you declare it. This unit's leader must be able to move in a straight line using the unit's charging movement until engaged in combat. Otherwise, you will not be able to perform this action. Move the troop leaders and place the other troops into formation. At this point, they charge. Attack the target unit in melee. Unit starts a combat with the enemy unit that is resolving by applying all the rules described in the attacking in melee. For units of charge, you can reroll your attack roll. So basically, when you charge, you have a slight advantage. So they can move 10 strides, basically, into melee and then make an attack. And then melee attack. Combat, follow these steps to resolve your attack. Your unit must perform a positioning maneuver if any of its troops are not engaged in combat, which is basically a pile-in move. Select a melee attack on the unit's profile. So let's say we're using these Orc Hunters. They're going to use their basic melee attack. It has a red, 3 oranges, and a yellow. And then you roll those. Select a melee attack from your target profile. All troops in your unit your opponent must make a defense roll based on their combat panel on the number of troops in their unit. So if they still have above half, then these, what are they called? Bucklemen would then roll a green, and a black. So 2 greens and a black to show their defenses. And they would get 3 shields and 2 triggers. Gather your attack dice pool. Resolve a face-to-face roll between your attack roll and your opponent's defense roll. Your opponent receives as much damage as strikes remain on the roll, and vice versa. Your unit does damage. So, like, if you have strikes in your defense roll, you can actually hit back. So these guys can spend their trigger to add a shield to their roll. So they've got 2 triggers, which means they can add. I think you can only do each trigger once, though. Instant formation, switches, sorry. Each time you make a roll, you get a series of symbols which add the automatic symbols. Switches give you the chance to spend them. Switches are available to your unit profile on the following right. You can activate the same switch multiple times as long as you have symbols to do it. So in this case, with 2 of these, they're going to be able to add a shield twice. So they get 5 shields total in their roll. If both units have suffered the same amount of damage, there's no winner and losers, both remain in contact. So with the attack roll, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the hollow, although the hollow will be blocked by a shield. And then they've got 1, 2 hollows and a basic trigger. So they receive the vulnerable state from the double regulars. They don't have a double regular. So the hollows, I think you need 2 of them to make a whole. Switches, and then hollow symbols. Automatic symbols. And WARCROW, symbol and face-to-face. Dice pools, switches. Resolution, cancel as many hits as you get from shields. So if they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hits, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shields, there will be 1 hollow strike that will go through. And I don't see a reference to the hollow ones. Hollow successes and hollow blocks. Let's look over here. Pushback defeated. Now, in this case, we'll just count the totals. If your unit has inflicted more damage, so at least 1 blood, we say that they've won the combat. So if your unit has suffered at least more damage, that's lost combat or is a defeated unit. And also, these attackers could reroll if they want, so you could reroll this dice for charging and get another strike. And then that would hit no matter what there. And the 2 strikes would get you at a vulnerable state no matter what. Push back the defeated unit. If your unit's won the combat and still engaged, you can push back the enemy unit to force it to advance position. The pushback unit must make a move using only its first move value in any direction, as long as it's placed as much distance as possible between them and the winning unit. And then pursued and push back. If you push back the defeated unit, you can pursue by moving your move value in its direction, even engaging it in combat. If your troop leader manages to reach base-to-base contact with any of its troops, you're not considered to have charged. And at the end of combat, at the end of your combat, if your unit's engaged with the unit targeted by your attack, you must carry out positioning maneuvers if any of your troops are not engaged. And a positioning maneuver is, starting with your troop leader, you must place unengaged troops in your unit in contact with at least 1 enemy troop. Remember that you must always be in formation. If it's possible for you to engage a troop in combat because it does not have enough space, you must place it in contact with your troop leader, or failing that, with any other troop in your unit. And after moving, the Orc Hunters attack the Black Legion Bucklemen in melee. First, they perform a positioning maneuver to maximize their contact with the enemy. And they fight. So this is going to explain, like, the successes, basically. And it walks you through it like it's a battle report. And you destroyed when the last troop is wiped out in combat. Officers and characters that are part of a unit with the last suffered damage, since they're the troop leader, and support characters that are part of a unit can be eliminated like any other troop when the damage suffered equal to their wounds value. You can also heal X. If an effect allows you to heal X from a unit, remove a number of damage tokens from it, as indicated by X. And the Black Legion Bucklemen suffer 3 wounds as a total of the result of the attack. As each Buckleman has a wounds attribute of 2, 1 Buckleman falls in combat, and the remainder has a wound on them. Then we move on to stress and morale. Stress in WARCROW represents the tension of combat. A unit stressed if its activation ends and it's already activated previously during the current round, or it loses a melee. Place a stress token on it. Your unit's morale value indicates the maximum level of stress it can take before it has to make a test. For the end of the current activation, unit has a stress level higher than its morale, must pass a willpower test or become demoralized. So basically you have to roll your willpower stat. So in the case of the Bannermen, they'd have to roll a orange dice. And they got a success, so they passed, so they didn't become demoralized. If they become demoralized, when he indicated stress by X levels, add to its stress level, and demoralized units happen later in this unit. Then we go through casting spells, and it's a similar trigger system for casting spells during the next activation. They have the orcs do it, and the Hegemony is going to fight back. The big monster appeals, the Wild Morn Mag, which is a huge, like, giant, basically, which they give you a token for in here. And then you get to continue playing, like using your command tokens to activate things, performing different skills, assaulting. This action allows you to engage an enemy unit in attack. If you declare it, you must select an enemy unit. This long action is made up of 2 simple actions that are executed one after the other. So first you move, then you attack. Opportunity attack, if you try and move away from someone, they get to strike you. And then demoralize units. If your unit's demoralized, it cannot be activated in any way. It cannot stress itself in any way and cannot reduce its stress. It cannot control objectives, and its conquest value becomes null. And if it participates in combat, it will always flee after the melee. And those are your various other states. You got frightened, slow, disarmed, or vulnerable. And if you rally, when a turn counter marker activates the unit's broken unit token, it must make a willpower check to rally. So basically you place that on the turn counter. So these counters are a unique numbering system to identify units that are demoralized. They come in a pair with the same number, smaller ones placed in the unit and the larger ones placed in the turn counter, so you know when they get to rally at the end of which turn. Take the corresponding broken unit token and place it in the turn counter 2 positions from the turn to turn. So you stay demoralized 2 positions ahead of whatever the current turn is. And then you get to try and rally when that happens. If you don't pass, advance demoralized unit 2 more positions and then flee again. So you just keep being useless and running away. And we got some terms and keywords for the other stuff in here that when characters join units and stuff like being elite. Once the dice have been rolled, and before rerolls included, and before advancing to switch a step, you may replace any hollows with full, and any, basically the hollows don't count as successes unless you're elite, and then they get turned into full successes. And then fearless, your unit ignores the effects of intimidating, and this means the frightened status. And golem, your unit ignores the effect of intimidating. Hostile, immovable, intimidating. When this unit engages in combat, the enemy unit must perform a willpower test in which they must obtain at least as many successes as indicated by the end, the target number, to avoid stress. And for every one they obtain, they'll gain a stress because things are scary and that can make you flee. And then we get a little campaign. So before playing the campaign, choose a faction, and we get a little ladder campaign with a story where you're going to play through these stories and acquire items. So first is the Voice in the Storm. You get a Canoptic Jar, potentially, or you might break the Canoptic Jar. The Mirror of the Wastelands, you get a Copper Key, and hunt monsters. And finally, the Heart of the Winter. And you get to find out who has the most achievements, military points, and arcane points at the end. And then you compare scores. So I love that this comes with a little like 3-game campaign, which we're going to play on here, and then a reference sheet on the back for playing over the course of the term with your short and long actions. So what we have here basically is a condensed what you need for exactly what comes in the box rulebook with a nice flow battle report to teach you the core game mechanics and rules, and then everything else you would need to actually play that, as well as some longevity. So if you only have this box game, not only can you play that introductory scenario, you can then play through a little mini campaign. And I'm very excited about that because this is the kind of gameplay I want to see Corvus Belli making. I like the tournament-driven ITS stuff for Infinity, but I really love when they start to do creative storytelling stuff. And I think that's so important at the early outset of a new game system because we don't know anything about this world. We need stories and memorable moments to make us attached to these characters and understand kind of what's going on. They'll only have room to grow if we start to fall in love with whoever, Ensign Dragoslav the Angvalence and Rathmane Alborg. Like, you need to, it's kind of like the beginning of Warcraft 2, right? You need these characters to become compelling, to become sort of like these growing protagonists in the story so we can explore the universe through their eyes. This is a big moment in game design, and I'm glad that they gave us a story to go with it because I'm only going to care about what's going to happen in the future with this game if I have some investment in these 2 characters and what's going on with them. So, as per usual, good job Corvus Belli with the actual product design. The box set's really well made. You get everything you need to play in here. You got all your cardboard. There's no hurdles to playing outside this box. You can play 4 very satisfying games that are narrative and driven and have plenty, 125 points worth of stuff to get yourself started right out of this box, as well as the terrain to play with. And we'll see how this grows. So if you're excited to try out WARCROW, I know I am. You're going to get to see me same day today building and assembling this box set and talking about what the deal is with that, and then moving forward to get some actual gameplay in and doing the Let's Play in the very near future. So big thanks for watching. We'll see you for more GMG reviews, and tomorrow, if you're a patron, you can hang out on GMG and watch me build the miniatures out of this box. It's next on Ash. Now we're gaming.